This is what about 40,000 sacks of potatoes looks like when it's dumped in a pit. What's up, guys? Welcome out to another wonderful day on the farm. It has been pretty good, a little stressful, but pretty good. So we're gonna do some updates today. This is gonna be kind of a condensed version. My last few videos have just been really long, like 40 minutes, and it takes a long time to edit. So I'm gonna try and make this less, but we'll see. I tend to ramble. I have my Bluetooth sunglasses today, if you can't tell. They're a little funky, so I just got to Bluetooth them to my face and they stay on. So yeah, I'm gonna go out in this field and I'm gonna dig, because the pivot is right here, and I just want to make sure at this stage in growing that the potatoes aren't too wet. So we don't want the potatoes to get too wet or too dry. We just want them to be even. So I'm gonna dig up a potato plant. We'll see how wet the soil is and how wet the potatoes are. And then I have a bunch of pivots to start today, and yeah, we'll get going. As far as the potato plants go, it looks pretty good. We have the vine we want. This field is probably one of our worst looking fields that I've seen, because this field has a little bit of early die. So if you can see, some of the plants are already starting to shrivel up and wilt. I don't know what's causing it. They said it's verticillium. Not real sure what that is, but it's just something that the potato plants get, and they start to die off early. So we're pumping fertilizer still. We're trying to keep these alive as long as possible to get the potatoes to bulk up. So I'm gonna dig up a plant and we'll see what we got. Okay, so I just dug this one up, and the dirt is good. Like, it's not dry and it's not wet. But what I wanted to see was, we have this nice potato here. It's about 4 inches long, but you see all these little white dots on the potato. So those are like the potato's mouth. So when it's really wet, those get big and open up really big to let the potato breathe a little bit. And when they're open, you don't want to keep pushing more water into them, because that's when diseases and stuff can get in. So by looking at this, they're pretty small. Looks like they're starting to shrink back up, which is good. When they're shrunk back up and small, that's when it needs water. So that's when you want to send the water around. So it looks like this is going to get water pretty soon. So that's about right. That's right where we want them. And they look really good. Like, these are going to be really good potatoes for the grocery stores. On to the next field. This field, I watered this. So I'm right here next to the pivot. But I watered it yesterday over that way. So it was on that end. So that end is the wet end. And I walked this back dry to this end, so it would start on the dry end. Because if we water that way to the wet end, and then start it on the wet end and water back this way, this end is going to be really dry when the pivot gets here, and that end is going to be super wet because it got watered twice right in a row. So that's why I watered it that way, walked it back dry, and now we're going to start here again and water it back that way. But I'm going to go dig and see how these look. The reason I want to dig in each field to see how they look before I turn the pivot on is because if those little eyes, those little white, well, I guess they're not the eyes, if those little white mouths are open really big, I don't want to turn it on yet. I want to wait until they close up a little bit and then turn it on. So if they're open big, we'll probably wait till the end of the day and start this at the end of the day. All right, I just dug this one up, and I can see this potato, that those little mouths are closed right down. So it's ready for water. And then if I grab some of the dirt that's way down low, and I squeeze it, and if it'll ball up and make a ball, that means you have pretty good moisture. This is balling up, but then kind of falling apart. Granted, this is kind of sandy, gravelly soil, but it is looking pretty good. There's another potato right here. Looks like this one fell off, and my camera doesn't want to focus very well. Yeah, those eyes they're there, those little mouths, but they're closing down. So we're gonna turn this pivot on and get it going here. I'm going to cover this back up so these potatoes can continue to grow. Just like that. Set this to reverse, wet, start. There's the water. And she's going. Now I have a pivot over here on the other end of this field that's more sandy. I'm gonna go check it, see if it needs to be started up. Now, because this pivot, it's on the other side of this field, you probably can't even see it, but the end of it, I walked it back to the dry side. So I really need to go dig over there, but I can't get there without running over a ton of potatoes. So I'm out here on the other side of the field. I'm just gonna walk out here a little bit and dig. And it's not gonna be exactly the driest spot of the field, but it'll be pretty close. This is all really sandy ground, so I imagine it's gonna be pretty dry, but let's go dig and check. So this, like I said, is really sandy. So if I take a handful of this, like it'll barely make a ball. Just falls apart, so it needs water. And then also, there's a potato. Hope that's focusing. It's hard for me to tell, but the little mouths are just about closed up. So we're gonna go ahead and start water on this too. I'm gonna go forward. Gotta set my speed. And then turn the pump and start. Now we are pumping on both of these pivots, these little tanks. It's not nitrogen. So now we're pumping phosphate, which we just don't want these potatoes to die. So the phosphate is gonna keep the potatoes alive, but it's not gonna make them like grow. It's not gonna make the vine grow anymore. Nitrogen makes the vine grow. Phosphate just keeps them from dying. So now we're pumping phosphate. We're only pumping phosphate on a couple fields where the levels are low. And when I say levels, every week our agronomist takes petioles. So he'll come out and they'll take samples of the soil and the plant, like the leaves. And they'll take those and send them into a lab, and they'll get what the nitrogen, what the phosphate, what all the numbers are. And if some of those numbers are getting too low, that's what we decide to pump on. So this time of year, we don't want to put on too much water. So because the rows are closed, they don't dry out as much. So I have a rain gauge, because this pivot, the sheet that's in the panel that tells you how much water it's putting down at a certain speed is not accurate. So I'm gonna put this rain gauge out, so when this pivot goes by, I will know how much it put out, because we don't want to put much more than 2 to 2.5 inches per week. So we'll put this out, and then I'll come check it after this pivot goes by, probably tomorrow, and see how much water we put down. But I'm gonna put this in and we'll go check the next field. So this field, the pivot is on its way. I had to park way over there by those trees and walk all the way out here because I needed to get in front of the pivot. So I'm out here and I dug up. So let me show you this. Aside the fact that there are a lot of potatoes, I just dug up one plant, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 potatoes under this one plant. And I think there was one more that rolled somewhere, but there's 9 potatoes at least that I can see. And looking at the potatoes, and yes, I took all these off the vine because I'm actually going to take them home and eat them. But you can see those white dots. So those mouths, what they call them, are open right now. So they're a little bit bigger on this one. And it's the same on all of them. So all these potatoes, the mouths are just open a little bit more than the other fields that we checked, which means these potatoes are a little on the wet side. And if I take a good handful of dirt, and this is really sandy, this dirt, I can make a ball and bounce it and it doesn't break apart. So this has a lot of moisture in it, probably almost too much. So for this pivot, I think I might go turn it off and just let it sit for today, and then probably turn it on tonight. So it'll be off for about 8 hours. It'll give it a little bit more time for this to dry up just a little bit, because it's not like these aren't open all the way, but they are open. So I'm going to turn it off. It'll let these kind of close up just a little bit, and then I'll turn it back on tonight. Now I'm only going to take the ones right here that fell off the vine when I pulled it out. It's like this one, and there's one other one under here. Those are going to stay in there. And because they're the only ones on the vine, they're probably going to get nice and big. Okay, well, after much debating with myself, I think I am going to shut this pivot off. I know I said I was going to shut it off, then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't shut it off, because tomorrow we're going to come around with our agronomist. Like, well, maybe he would want it back on, but it's wet. We're going to turn it off at least for 6 to 8 hours. I may not shut it off for a full 24 hours, but, and it's leaking. We are gonna shut it off. I may come back later today and turn it back on, and it'll have, I don't know, 6 hours off, 8 hours off. So that's what we're gonna do. Now let's go check the next field. Also, sorry about the mud that was on the camera. I didn't even notice it till just now. Wiped it off. Now you're clean. Before we go to the next field, one problem with shutting this off is this is the one that has the dead end ditch. So normally when I shut the pivot off, I have to go and I have to turn the ditch off so it doesn't overflow. So I got thinking, what if I just turn the hand lines on for 6 hours or 8 hours? The hand lines on this field is all sandy and the hand lines on the other end are really, really sandy. So I thought they probably need more water anyway. So I just switched it to the hand lines. That way I didn't have to turn the ditch off. So when I come back out later, I can just switch it back to the pivot and away we go. Using the big brain today. I'm on my way to the next potato field, and this is one of our wheat fields that I was driving by. So I thought I would come out here and check it. So we've turned our wheat off for about 2 weeks now, and we're kind of thinking that within the next probably 2 weeks, this will be dry and ready to go. Like, we're waiting for things like this to dry up. Like, you don't want any green ones. And then the stems down at the bottom are still kind of green in some of them. And this is like the very edge of the field, which is the driest anyway. If you walk out there, there's full green patches. So, but kind of what we're looking for here, we want this to be dry. So if I take this now and I just rub it in my gloves like this, the kernels, see that? Should start to fall out into my glove. So just twisting it up like that. And now, if I blow this off, there's a bunch of kernels right there. So they're drying up. We'll see how dry they are right here. I don't know if they're squishy at all. No, these are pretty hard. These are good. I may put these in my mouth and chew them for a minute and see how hard they are. But the wheat is looking good, starting to dry up. We'll be harvesting this in a couple weeks. Just chewing on this wheat. It's pretty hard. That piece that we rolled up, got the seeds out, kernels out. It's dry. We could probably harvest that, but we gotta wait for the rest of the field to be ready. So I'm in the next field, and I have kind of a funny story. So when we were planting, this was the field that we set up on. So we planted a little bit, stopped, dug behind, make sure to check spacing and depth and all that stuff. Well, this plant is not a potato. I am fairly certain that is a sunflower. So I was thinking, and there's a bunch of them. There's sunflower plants scattered throughout this whole field, but it's just on this end. This end is where we were stopping all the time, getting out, checking spacing and all that stuff. And I couldn't figure out why there's sunflowers out here until I remembered when we were planting, Christopher and Trevor had a big bag of sunflower seeds that they were chewing on, getting the seeds, and then spitting the extras, spitting all the shells and stuff out in the field as they were checking this. They planted sunflower seeds when we were planting this, just by spitting the sunflowers out. So we have, especially over here, there's like 40 sunflower plants out here that, judging by the look of this, are going to be blooming in the next, I don't know, couple weeks maybe. But there's some over there that are like 6 feet tall. Crazy. Just kind of funny. We accidentally planted sunflowers because they were chewing on sunflower seeds while we were calibrating the potato planters. I just drove down by all the other sunflower plants because, well, we need to dig some of these, and man, look at that. That's about ready to open. But I'm gonna walk out here a little ways and dig up and see how these look. Now I did, same thing, I walked these pivots back to the dry side so they can start on the dry side instead of starting on the wet side. So I'm just gonna walk out here a little ways and see what it looks like. But this is very sandy soil, so I'm sure it's pretty dry, but we'll dig it just to make sure. All right, I dug up a plant. This one didn't have as many potatoes on it. We had 5 potatoes, and this one's a funky looking one, but
it'll still taste the same. Weird potatoes taste just as good as normal ones. But look how big this guy is. That's like a big potato right there. It's a good 5-inch potato. That's a good potato. But you can also see some of these, if I put it in the sun maybe, they do have those little white spots, but they're all closed up. And if I take some of the soil from way down deep where the potatoes are growing, you can ball it up, but it falls apart really easy. You can't really bounce it without it breaking apart like that other field. So we're gonna go get these turned on. Well, this was very unexpected. I was driving along and saw that one of them was actually opened up. And look at that thing. It's like as big as my hand. That's gonna be a big flower when it's all full and open. We'll have to come check some of these other ones when they start to all open up. But what an unexpected thing to find in a potato field is a big sunflower plant. Just growing right amongst the potatoes. Apparently they like the same watering conditions as potatoes do. That's crazy. I made a mistake on this pivot. So the one with the sunflowers is way over there. Then there's another one over here. But this pivot is the biggest one on this field. And I watered it that way. I walked it back dry to this side because I was like, oh, well, this side will be the most dry. But I made a mistake because I forgot that this field has multiple soil types. So that side of the field is really sandy, like straight sand. So that pivot over there and the little pivot over there are in mostly sand. But this pivot, this side of the field, just a little bit over here, is like heavy, heavy dirt. And I didn't remember that. So I dug these up and you can see all those little white dots. So the potatoes they're not too wet, but they don't need water right now. And if I take this soil, unlike the sand on the other side, man, that is a sturdy mud ball right there. It is very wet. But I'm still gonna start it on this side because it's not the whole field like that. It's only this little bit on this side. Like if I walked down the pivot a few towers and dug, it's a different soil type and it would probably be dry. So I'm still gonna start it, but now I remember I always want to start this pivot on that side of the field, not this side of the field, because this side is always gonna be the wetter side. So we'll water it over to the sandy side and then I won't walk it back dry next time. I'll just start it over there and come back this way because this edge of the field is very sticky, almost clay soil. So I'm gonna go get these 3 pivots started up because most of the field does need water. Right here doesn't, but I mean, you can't not water part of it. So I'm gonna go get these started and then I'll go show you one more thing. So I've adjusted all my settings in here. We're gonna go start. I'm not putting on very much. Start this guy. This one will only take about 7-8 hours. This one will take about 9 hours. And this one, let's get this one started too. This one should take 9 hours. So they should all be done about the same time. Okay, pivots are going. They're getting the water they need. Now let's go look at the potatoes that are in the cellar and I'll give you a little update on that. Well, this rotten cellar, they've been taking it out, but you can see that shelf right back there. I don't think we're gonna be able to salvage anything out of here, but right now it's clear full of water. So we're gonna try and scrape out some of the water so they can come in here and get more loads out. They said it's getting kind of hard to get around in here, but they've got over half of it out, so that's good. But we're just dumping all these potatoes out by one of our fields out in the desert, and we're going to spread these potatoes on the field for fertilizer. It's the only thing we can do with them. That's one way to get the water out. Probably the only way at this point. It's so sloppy and sludgy. Yummy. So this is one cellar. Turn my lights on. You guys can see better than I can. This camera does an amazing job in the dark. But you can see they cleaned it out. So this is the cellar that was next to the rotten cellar. So they got this whole cellar cleaned out and hauled in, which is fantastic. We don't need any more rotten potatoes. Now, let me go show you the other side where all the rotten potatoes were. And I say were because I don't think there's any more in there anymore. So this is the rotten side. So the last video you saw, they were about right here. And we were having to scrape out. You can actually kind of see where the scraper was pulling all the watery mess out. It's dried up a little bit. It was rotten pretty much all the way back, but not completely, because in the back of the cellar we had some potatoes that we didn't move. And I can walk back there a little further. This is still dry. It stinks in here though. It smells really bad. So we got back, there was about 10,000 sacks in here in the back that they didn't take out initially. And when we had to move our seed potato cellar out so we could put our seed potatoes that we were going to plant this year, we moved our potatoes that were in our seed potato cellar into this cellar. So we just moved them into a different cellar. Now when you do that, they don't last very long. Once you get them out and then they get warm from being outside and then you put them in, then it has to cool back down. They don't last very long. And they knew that, the processor knew that, we knew that, and they told us it'll be 2 or 3 weeks till we take those out again because they knew they were gonna go bad. Well, it was 3.5 months that they sat in the cellar and it started to get hot outside. They were good for probably 2 months and then they started to turn bad and we started to see some rotten spots. Well, they all went rotten. They took 10 loads out of the front and they took those, but they were 60-70% rot. And then they rejected the rest of the cellar. They said, we're not taking any more of that whole cellar, which is totally their fault because they knew that they were gonna go bad because we already moved them and everything. Like, it was their fault. They should have had them out in time. But they rejected the rest of the cellar, so we hauled all these out. We got to the very back where those 10,000 sacks were, and you can see there still are some potatoes in here. And when we got back to those, we looked at them and we're like, those look good still. And I can't walk over there because you can see this is like mud, rotten mud. So I don't want to walk over there. But you can see that there's potatoes here, there's still potatoes there. So there's probably still maybe 2 semi-loads left in here. And they've actually hauled those 10,000 sacks, they hauled them into the plant and they've been running them. So those potatoes in the very, very back were still good. So that shows you that if we hadn't moved the potatoes, if we didn't have to move them, because they didn't get our seed cellar empty in time to get seed and plant our seed potatoes, if we hadn't had to move them, they would have been fine. It was the moving them that caused them to rot. I know a lot of people have asked, where does all the water come from? It comes from the potatoes breaking down because potatoes are 95% water anyway. So the potatoes break down and the water comes out. But the ones in the back, even though it's warm, like it's probably 75 degrees in here, the ones in the back are still good. So you might ask, okay, what did we do with the 40,000 sacks of potatoes that they rejected because they were rotten? What did we do with them? Well, we have a field that's way out across the river and it's right next to an old feedlot. They don't use the feedlot anymore, but they have a big pit. So we hauled all the, and kudos to STI. They're awesome because they scooped all of these rotten potatoes out and hauled them all out. We didn't have to do it like we did last year. They did use our backhoe to scrape them down and be able to scoop them. But those scooper guys, man, they're the best because they sat in this nasty cellar with the smell and everything for like 2 weeks, just hauling out rotten potatoes. So we hauled them out to the feedlot, dumped them in the big pit, and I'll go show you that here in a little bit. And right next to that pit is a field that we can't haul manure on. So we are taking those rotten potatoes, which still have fertilizer value, and we're gonna put them in our manure spreader trucks later this year, and we're gonna spread them out on that field so we can at least get, it has about $2.50 worth of fertilizer value in them, even though they're rotten. So we'll at least get some fertilizer value out of them, if nothing else. But I'll take you guys out to the pit where we dumped them and show you the pile. And here's one of STI trucks right now to get the last couple loads out of this cellar. All right, we're out here where they've been dumping the potatoes. I brought Josh out. We had our loader out here, and I'll show you kind of why, but we had our loader out here to push up, but he's taking the loader back to the farm because we don't need it out here anymore. So this is the pit, and it's a big concrete lined pit where they used to dump rotten potatoes. So the people who own this feedlot, they used to own Idaho Supreme in Firth, which was a potato plant, and now they don't own it anymore, but they own this feedlot, and they used to bring all of their bad potatoes and dump them here in the pit, and then they feed them to the cows because, well, it's still good cattle feed. They don't have any cows here at the feedlot anymore, but the feedlot is right next to the field that we're running. There goes Josh. We have to put a new window in the tractor or in the loader, because the wind caught the door and threw it open and shattered it. So yeah, we have a good pile. So they started by dumping off that back wall back there. They would just go back there, and I'll go back there. But they go back there and they would just dump it off, and that worked fine for a while till that got full. Then they had to dump it up here on the concrete. They couldn't back their trucks in or they couldn't get back out. So they dump it up here at the top, and that's why we needed the loader to push them in as they dumped them. But let's go back over here and see what it looks like. It smells terrible. It is one of the worst smells. Like, the wind is blowing straight from the potatoes to where I'm at, and it smells so bad. But let's go up top and see what it looks like. Okay, I'm up on top, kind of stopped off to the side, but you can see this big lake of water between them. All that water came from the potatoes. So this is what about 40,000 sacks of potatoes looks like when it's dumped in a pit. So, I mean, you can see that this pit would probably hold 1 million sacks. It's a big pit. But they just dumped them off, and some of it, like the ones on the top that the last ones they dumped, they don't look that bad, but they claim that they couldn't use them at their plant and then push those in, and all that water's just the potatoes decomposing and the water comes out of them. But yeah, this is what all these potatoes look like. We will be hauling these potatoes out on this field. It's a wheat field, so once we cut the wheat off, we're gonna haul the potatoes out. It's gonna be so awesome. The last time we hauled potatoes out, yeah, it stunk so bad. Like, you had to turn the AC off, roll the windows up. It was hot, but like, I'd rather it be hot than have to smell it. Like, it smelled so bad. So yeah, that's what we're having to deal with right now. Okay, I'm back out at the field that I turned the hand lines on and shut the pivot off. And the hand lines have been running for a while, but I don't think I want to turn the pivot on. I'm just gonna leave it off because I talked to our agronomist and he said I can just leave it off till tomorrow when we check it, and possibly turn it on tomorrow, because this pivot is gonna need some time off anyway, so why not have it right now? So I'm just gonna flip this switch. We're gonna turn this pump off because the hand lines don't really need any more water than they've already got. And yeah, we will get it started back up after we check everything tomorrow. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. We are getting near the end of the growing season. We still have like 6 weeks. These potatoes are gonna bulk up, they're gonna get bigger. So we'll see what we get, but so far they're looking really good. Now these Norcotas, they are susceptible to a lot of different diseases and stuff, and that's why we check them a lot. Like if they grow too fast, they can get hollow heart, and if they don't have enough water, they can get jelly end and they can start to curl or get points on them. If they have too much water, then they can rot and then get other things. So we got to make sure to keep the watering really even. And that's why I'm constantly checking and digging and trying to make sure that they're growing well. We do our best to grow a good crop of potatoes. These potatoes are going to end up in Costco, because I know Driscoll's, they have a big contract with Costco. So these are going to be in Costco in fresh bags or boxes. And that's what you guys are going to be buying, because these are all growing for fresh this year. They're not going for process. So it should be really good. We should have a really good crop of potatoes. If you guys like the video, go down below, hit subscribe. This is kind of a condensed, I mean, not super condensed. I left a few things out, like turning on pumps and whatever, just a few small things. I tried to shorten it a little bit, condense it a little bit. So hopefully this video isn't much more than 20 minutes long instead of like 45 minutes long. Let me know if you guys liked it. Go down in the comments. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. I hope you guys enjoy it. I love you. I'll see you in the next one.